And it is time for yet another edition of the Soonerscoop.com podcast, and we welcome you back. Eddie Radosevich, Joe Duvall, myself, Carey Murdoch here with you to talk a little bit about what's been going on in Oklahoma football, basically over the last, week and a half or so. But guys, a lot of stuff with the Big 12 and Baylor. But we've had some interesting things happen. Last night, breaking news, Adrian Hardy, wide receiver prospect, was a quarterback in high school, parts ways with Oklahoma. You've got Cody Thomas that is done at Oklahoma, which, Eddie, I know that's hard to believe since it seems like we just saw him not too long ago at spring practice in his high school uniform. Buddy Hield goes number 6 in the draft last night. Isaiah Cousins ends up getting drafted. And then you've got coaching raises across the board, and including a huge raise for Lincoln Riley. So let's start there. And Sooners obviously not underpaying Riley because he came from ECU, paying him $500,000 a year. I'm sure it was a raise from what he was getting there. But I guess you could say that Oklahoma's now sent a message saying, we want to do everything we can to keep you until the perfect job comes along. Especially during a time when I think it could be argued that maybe giving coaches raises isn't the best time to do it. After they announced that the university is having one of the worst battles, I guess, with education funding in the history of the program or the history of the school, and here's $400,000 for Lincoln Riley. But they obviously every coach getting at least $25,000 of a raise. I thought it was interesting that they gave pretty much everybody a raise, that it was a full across the board raise for everybody. And obviously kind of a tip of the cap to the coaching staff for the way that the program has gone or is going, and everything that has entailed since the turnover, I guess, from 2 years ago or I guess a year ago when Stoops made changes at the top. Well, you come off the Orange Bowl, come off a national semifinal, the first appearance in the history of the school and the college football playoff, which hasn't been around for very long. But that's what you got to do. I mean, you're in a place like Oklahoma, you got to be competitive. It was kind of interesting too, Joe, that Kerry Cooks came in on a multi-year deal, a 2-year contract. That was part of what he needed in order to leave Notre Dame to come to Oklahoma. But interesting that he and Bill Bedenbaugh were the two guys that were extended to 2018.
Yeah, and there are a couple of guys that in our world of recruiting a little more focused, that they've done a really good job since arriving in Norman. Kerry Cooks especially now really seems to have that secondary group rolling and recruiting, being very selective on who he gets, getting guys like Rivals 250 guys like Bandy and Brown this year without much trouble. Has lots of guys out on the radar. Bill Bedenbaugh has done an excellent job with that offensive line. I mean, just look at last year with Orlando Brown and Drew Samia. You have 2 bookend tackles. One's a redshirt freshman, one's a true freshman, and you make it to the college football playoff for the first time. I mean, that goes against most football ways of thinking about it. If you're not strong on the offensive line, if you're not experienced, then you can't make it. And it didn't look like Oklahoma had the experience on the offensive line. And Bill Bedenbaugh, first of all, identified the talent that could play early. Orlando Brown was kind of a unique situation that fell into his lap, but he still made the play for Orlando Brown, got him, brought in Drew Samia, found guys that could work hard and play early. And not only that, but those are very talented guys who have a chance to play in the league one day. And Kerry Cooks has done the same thing on the defensive side. Look what he did for Zach Sanchez. That safety group, Ahmad Thomas and Stephen Parker, really grew under Kerry Cooks. And you really have to like what Jordan Thomas looks like. Jordan Thomas looks like a future first day, second day NFL draft pick at corner. So really, it depends on who you are, like anything else in life. If you're a student and your tuition just got raised and you see all these guys getting $25,000, $400,000 raises, you're thinking, okay, well, what's this about, OU? But, I mean, in the college football realm, you have to do this stuff. Look what Alabama does on every day. They have a staff that's much bigger than OU's, and they're paying them very well. And if you want to compete in this, I mean, it's a multi-million-dollar business now. You have to pay the talented people in your industry, and especially Lincoln Riley looks to be one of those guys, and they definitely boosted his pay.
Well, and it's taken some time for Oklahoma to come around. I mean, it was several years ago, I think, when Chad Morris kind of became the first. I don't know if he was the first $1 million assistant. Maybe Les Miles did that at LSU. I can't remember exactly how that came about. But, yeah, let's face it. I mean, even going back to the Kevin Wilson days, OU was not always known. They kind of said, we're Oklahoma. We don't have to pay you the top. And they still kind of are that way. Yeah. I mean, I don't think Oklahoma is ever going to lead the nation in assistant pay, but they are going to be competitive. Just like they're not going to be like Alabama and say we have the highest paid head coach in college. I mean, Bob Stoops is very well paid. Nobody's I would hope that nobody's complaining too much other than his agent.
There might be a couple,
which is his job to make that much money, but. Joe Castiglione is just not the kind of guy that wants to have, be the pace setter. And I don't think OU as a university wants to be the pace setter as the place that is willing to pay the most to have a coach.
I pulled up the pay scales for assistant coaches last year. There was 9 coaches that made over $1 million last season. I think
a couple of them have head coaching jobs. Will Muschamp.
Will Muschamp, yeah, one. He was number 1. Brent Venables was number 5 at $1.4 million. Bringing both Lincoln Riley and Mike Stoops up to $900,000, unless Phil Bennett got a raise, which you never know what Baylor could do. They might have given him a raise over the summer. They're now the highest paid assistant coaches in the Big 12, and that would be just at number 10, I guess, in the nationally. I'm sure that some of these guys' pay scales have changed over the course of this summer, but an interesting one is number 8, Central Florida. Brent Key made just over $1 million last year at Central Florida. So that's kind of interesting, I thought. But, Lincoln Riley and Mike Stoops now in the top 10 of nationally of coaches paid salary-wise. And I think that Mike Stoops going into last year at $850K was 18th. So I guess a bump of $50,000 there to get up to $900,000. And you can live pretty well in Oklahoma, I would think, and especially Norman, Oklahoma at $900K.
Do you think so?
I think so.
Yeah, I think you could stretch that out pretty far here in the 405.
You can have a freaking busload of kids making that kind of money.
Might be able to buy Groovies for $900K.
And if you think about it, I mean,
why? That's way too many Cougars.
I don't know. It might be worth it.
You can get a lot of nights in at Heyday.
Are you still going to Groovies, Eddie?
Yeah, I live close. I live in the same neighborhood as Groovies. I haven't been there in a while.
That's your neighborhood bar?
I went. Cousins is the neighborhood bar, literally the neighborhood bar. But
is Groovies open every night?
No, it's only open Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So you gotta really take advantage of the nights when you can get over there.
So tonight's one of those nights.
It could be, yeah.
Tonight could be a groovy night.
It could be.
Are there a lot of young people in your neighborhood?
Yeah, for the most part, there are. There's quite a few.
You live just right off of Northwest Expressway.
Mm-hmm. Right behind I guess that's D.D. Kirkland.
So is Groovies more age appropriate for you than like when you were living in Norman?
I mean, honestly, I might be too old to go there nowadays. It's like the college crowd goes there. So I don't know.
I feel your pain, Eddie.
Yeah,
I live on Campus Corner. It's just, I mean, what? At some point,
you're married though.
That's true. I mean, we don't really go out that often and do that kind of stuff anyway. But if we do, we go to like the library or something. That's always nice.
You sit at home and listen to your Al Jolson record.
I'll put Robert Goulet on the spin style.
You do have a Robert Goulet record.
I do have a Robert Goulet record. I do. Yeah.
I think one thing that's interesting to note is you talk about bringing in good assistants, and Carey Cooks, Bill Bedenbaugh, they have the multi-year deals. They're also the 2 highest paid position coaches at $450 for Carey Cooks and $415 for Bill Bedenbaugh. You got to realize OU hired them away. Bill Bedenbaugh had a really good job at West Virginia. He was secure. Carey Cooks, same thing at Notre Dame. So it is kind of cool that you get to see them rewarded, and they are 2 of the better position coaches in the country. And like you said, Joe, at their position. So Cale Gundy is bumped up to $390,000. So he is the 3rd highest paid coach on that staff. But I think the really bizarre thing, and I mean, it just shows you how football rules is the minimum raise that anyone got was $25K. And I think Patty Gasso got a $5,000 raise, and KJ Kindler and Mark Williams got $5,000 raises. They all won national championships this year.
That's such a slap in the face to Patty Gasso, I feel like, to just give her a $5,000
raise. She makes
raise.
Really good money for a softball coach.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I joked on Twitter after that was announced that They should have just given her a lifetime contract and transferred all the money that Sherry Cole was owed to Patty Gasso and just switched contracts with them.
You could probably argue that softball for outreach is outdoing OU basketball now.
Women's side.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I would definitely think so.
They're a national brand in softball. I don't know how much that translates into monetary value for coming back into OU, but, I mean, you can go across the country, and any softball girl, anybody playing softball in this country looks up to Lauren Chamberlain or Kaylani Ricketts or somebody like that, and they're huge OU fans. And Patty Gasso and Mark Williams and KJ Kindler, those are three people that I know for a fact have to turn down some of the country's best recruits because they do so well at their sports. And don't think for a second that they don't think about those football pay raises and look at their own and think they grumble under their breath a little bit.
Well, and the other thing was Bob Stoops was extended to 2021, which you have to do. You have to have a coach that has a contract that's at least 5 or 6 years just for recruiting purposes. So he was extended to 2021. He's not going anywhere. I mean, I don't ever see Bob Stoops taking another job. I think I think at this point you have to say Bob Stoops' entire coaching career will be at Oklahoma.
He's going to be a lifer.
Yeah.
I think we've passed the point of, I think every year you've gone into a season like, well, if OU does this, this, and this, I could see him maybe making that move to the NFL. But I think we're officially past that point, aren't we?
If this was a topic of conversation at the Rivals Challenge, a lot of the national analysts seemed to be very intrigued about. They didn't have a good feel for, is Bob Stoops going to be there forever? Is he going to be there a couple more years? What's the deal with Stoops? And I think that Eddie, Josh, and I kind of had the same response of whenever he wants to. I mean, that's basically it. He's not the kind of guy. He's not a Bill Snyder that's just going to be burning the midnight oil till he's in his 70s. He's going to find a time when he can walk away from it, and he's the kind of guy that can walk away from it. And I think you never know when that's going to be. It might be when his kids leave high school here in a couple of years, or it might be 10, 15 years down the road. It just kind of depends on when that flame goes out for Bob, but I don't think he'll have a problem walking away when it does.
You know, I kind of go back and forth on this. I mean, and Bob has said this. He doesn't want to be Joe Paterno. He doesn't want to be Bobby Bowden. He doesn't want to be that guy coaching into his 70s. And he's, 54 now?
That sounds right. Something like that. I always feel like he's 55.
55. So he'll be 56 in September. So he's getting up there close to the 60s. I can't imagine him wanting to coach much further than past his 60s. And then he can go work for ESPN, which I guarantee you is going to happen. Mr. I am not all that comfortable being asked questions by people. I think he'll be able to do pretty good as a media guy.
He's always done really well when they've gone up to that what do they call it? The car wash at ESPN or whatever. Yeah. He always seems like he has a good time with that. I don't think it's something that he particularly likes, but I think when a coach retires like that, they just get bored.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see. He has this his give a whatever meter is at complete zero, and so that's kind of a fun thing to put in front of a microphone, especially when he's kind of at those car washes. I like the way that Eddie put it because he's having fun with it. He seems like a guy who's constantly in these structured, stressful environments, and he does seem to be able to enjoy getting out of it and playing the game outside of sports a little bit. Although, so you're not buying into. He says he's going to coach middle school basketball. You're not buying into that, Carey, when he retires?
I could see him doing that just because, his dad was a baseball coach and a football coach and did all kinds of stuff like that. I'm really afraid that he's just going to hang out here and get a job at the Sports Animal and I'm going to have to do a show with him.
That would be great.
I don't want to do a show with Bob Stoops.
You think he's going to do like fill-in stuff like Pat Jones does in the mornings?
I could see him doing that.
God, that would be Bob Stoops taking calls after he's after they banned him from the Bob Stoops call-in show.
I would say this: Bob will have more patience with fans than Pat Jones does.
That would probably
Pat
be true.
does not like you're screwing around or not knowing what you're talking about.
Does he think that you're trying to kind of outwit him?
You're just a slappy. Just get off my phone line.
That would be the best. A full hour of Bob Stoops taking phone calls.
Yeah, but if Bob...
Well, right now, but I mean, in 10 years, I mean, he'll probably vacation for a while and all that stuff. But like Bob Stoops, it's kind of like how it always works. I didn't even want to have this conversation. It's not. I don't want it to happen. I don't want to have this conversation.
The best would
I
be
want to think of Bob Stoops being a sports animal host.
the best would be the guy that is just so pissed off about a decision that was made in like 2002, because there's people out there that would call in and, Bob, why'd you make this decision in 02 or 2003, when you lost your edge?
I really miss the Bob Stoops call-in show.
What happens to the first guy that mentions the repunt?
Yeah, that would be one that is up there. I mean, Carey,
I think Bob would just be like, "Yep, that was stupid."
What year was that when they stopped doing the call-in show? Because that was like after Tuesday post practice. That was like, can you get home fast enough to be able to get in front of the television to see the start of the Bob Stoops call-in show? I remember that was like the first or second year that I started the beat with you guys.
Ask and you shall receive.
You said something to us about the fans really needing to show up for the Kansas State game. And I'm in a club that's been around since the 70s. I'm the oldest remaining member. We've been bringing, 1.3 buses, but this year we're down to just one. But a bus load of fans over. We were joined by about 80,000 more of them, and they were, I thought, pretty loud, especially when Kansas State would have the ball. And I was just wondering, since we showed up, what you thought about the fan participation as opposed to player participation.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, I thought we did our part. I was hoping you thought we did our part as well.
I thought you fans were fabulous. And I'm proud of my players, whether you are or not. I thought my players played hard. I thought they played hard the entire night. They made some mistakes. So be it. And if you...
I'm a Sooner fan no matter what.
Well, what did you mean by player participation?
Mainly, I was referring to that I thought our fans were pretty loud most of the time.
I acknowledge that, and I agree with you totally. Now, I didn't understand your part about you threw in the players there, and I thought our players played hard. And I'll always back them on that. Okay, and I sure did the other night. Whether you appreciate it or not, they did. I'm sorry they made some mistakes.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Toby. Thank you, Dwayne.
In Tulsa.
I wonder how many
on Toby's face is just priceless.
Oh, yeah.
But that was the last. That was the last time they took calls. I don't see a date on this thing, but
That was 2012, right?
Right, because it was after the K-State loss at home.
yes, they lost to K-State at home. Was that the Halloween? No, that wasn't on Halloween. That was that was just was the Blake Bell fumble.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, inside the red zone, and
Landry Jones also fumbled, I think, in that game, right?
I think that's right. Yeah,
that's
Rolling
right.
to his right and gave up a touchdown, yeah. I was at Sooner Vision when that was my first year at Sooner Vision when they quit doing the Red Lobster call-in stuff, and I was still fairly new, so I wasn't involved in these discussions. But I remember them happening about quitting the call-in stuff, and it's basically silly because I think Bob handled that perfectly.
Oh, it's fantastic.
He nailed that. I mean, what else can you do?
That actually makes me. I mean, like taking calls would make me. I won't ever watch that show anymore. I mean, but if I know that Bob's going to take some calls, he's going to get some weirdos. Mm-hmm. I that interests me.
That was just great. He put him right back in his place, and he did it in a way that it was respectful. But anybody
I was wondering about fan participation versus player participation.
Bob was 2 levels ahead of that guy. That guy thought he was clever, but Bob was way far ahead of where he was.
I'm just glad he got it out. There's some people that wouldn't have had the intestinal fortitude to actually ask the question to Bob.
Oh, you could tell Dwayne was having to kind of muster it up as he went
Dwayne
along.
was pissed, man. He drove that bus all the way up.
Oh yeah, me and 80,000 others were there.
So great.
All right, we don't need to talk about Bob post football anymore. He's making a lot of money now. He's going to make it through 2021. One thing that did come up this week is Baylor, once again, and the Big 12 issuing a statement, which I thought was fairly strongly worded, was a statement that basically said, look, well, and let me backtrack here. Here's what was weird is I got a call from somebody that covers Baylor, and they wanted to know, hey, what was it that Bourne said about the Big 12 and Baylor, because they had the Regents meeting, and then Bourne spoke, and he made some comments about Baylor, basically saying, we don't want to rely just on media reports. We want to know what really happened. And the guy I was talking to, he was like, well, I don't understand. It was an oral report. And my whole point the whole time is like, I don't understand this attitude from Baylor, like, well, it was an oral report. It doesn't, it's not written down anywhere. My understanding is write it down. Like, go from being an oral report to a written report. It's not that difficult.
Well, it's clear that
just write the damn words down on a piece of paper.
It's like after they gave, after Pepper Hamilton, the firm gave their report, it's like they went up to him with the black light or whatever from Men in Black, and it's like, all right, your memory has been erased.
This never
Carry
happened.
on. This never happened.
it's literally like talking to a kid who you want to do something, and they know very well they can do it. They just don't want to. It's like, well, Johnny, can you go get your whatever? Go get your toy. And he just says, it's upstairs. Well, yeah, we'll go get it then. But I have to go up the stairs. Well, okay. Well, then go up the stairs. Like, it was an oral report. Well, that means you still know what the report was. Write it down, or just say it to me, and I'll record it. Like, well, I'm sure we can figure out the logistics of the situation, Baylor.
From the Big 12 standpoint, all they want to know is, correct me if I'm wrong, but they want to know what everybody else wants to know is, do they need to take any type of action? I mean, is this a bigger shit show than it already is, I think, is basically what the Big 12 is saying.
Eddie Radosevich. You and your cussy mouth.
Sorry, folks. But that is what it is.
Mature
right now.
content.
I'm going to change the rating on our iTunes thing now. Eddie ruined it. Way to go, Eddie.
Well, that's okay. I'll wash my mouth out with soap. But that's what it is. I mean, that's basically what the Big 12 is saying.
Yeah, look, what they want is they had a study convened. They had a someone come in and investigate. And there's no findings that anyone else can read. Now, they've already asked Baylor for this once. And Baylor has just been like, yeah, we saw that. We didn't do anything about it. We know you sent us something.
I mean, did they even give him they didn't give him any type of response, did they, when they asked for it on May 24th?
No, they just ignored it. But they acknowledged that they received the request. They've done that much. So, I mean, I don't know what recourse the Big 12 has if they just don't give them anything, but it does speak to a bigger picture, which is the lack of leadership, the lack of direction, even now, after all this stuff has happened. Because the Big 12 deserves to know. I'm sure that they don't want to write this stuff down because it's a law firm that did it, and they're like, don't write this stuff down. Like, you're going to be getting sued by all these people. We don't need to have stuff written down. So, it can be submitted in a courtroom.
Where does the Title IX stuff land? I mean, they have, 3 lawsuits now, or the 3 new lawsuits that came out last week? What happens with all that? I mean, and then you have the whole Art Briles situation with him kind of pressing the issue, and it turns out that he's using victims, and I mean, it's an entire mess.
It's a Department of Education issue with the Title IX. I don't know if you saw. I think it was the OU Daily had a story that said that OU is being investigated.
Yeah, I saw that
right now for like 3 different Title IX cases, and there's like 200 investigations all across the country on top. Like, I don't understand how Baylor even got away with not having a Title IX office when there are this many open investigations going on all the time across the country.
I just assume that they're going on all the time, and that's why it blows my mind that Baylor is not. Would they not even concerned that this Title IX situation could ever arise? Because I mean, this was just a ticking time bomb, almost waiting to happen with the ingredients they had over there.
Yeah, I don't know. It makes my head spin trying to just think of exactly how they got there and what they exactly expected. But I mean, just to kind of recap exactly what the Big 12, they sent out a release. They used words like gravely and deeply concerned. And they talked about the media reports about the activities involving the athletic program. They did mention on May 24th, so it hasn't been that long ago. May 24th, they requested a full accounting of the circumstances surrounding the sexual assaults at the school, and mentioned that the board is privy to information that's actually been made available to the public. But Bob Bowlesby sent a letter saying to their interim president, David Garland, again requesting documents associated with the investigations. So the Big 12 had to basically come out and say, look, we asked for this once. We're asking for it again. And by the way, we're letting everyone know that we're asking for this time.
Oh, yeah, it's on their website.
And it said, they put it on their website, which is bizarre. Something that's this sensitive in nature, not usually something that you put on a conference website. But the request was not only for written materials, but any information that has been conveyed orally to the Board of Regents or anyone at the university, basically. Unedited, written, or verbal information from the Pepper Hamilton report. Just omit the names. That's all they're asking. So they're basically saying, we want your investigation. We want to look at it. I don't know how much stronger you can be than that. And if they don't do it, I don't know, maybe we got some Mormons in the conference instead of Baptists.
I was about to say, what's the ultimate, what's the strength the Big 12 has here to get these things? So what if Baylor says, or what? What's the next step for the Big 12 then? I mean, can they do anything to Baylor?
They could kick them out of the conference. There's trying to think of the right way to say it. I mean, there are bylaws that allow them to do certain things if an institution isn't living up or meeting the standards of the rest of the conference. So, will it ever come to that? I can't ever see that.
That would be amazing if that happened. I mean, just absolute.
You're gonna get terrible tweets.
Oh, it'd be. Me?
Yeah.
From who? Jason King?
Don't go there.
I mean, this is if that happens. I mean, this seems almost ridiculous to think about, but if that does happen, people were literally right when they just said, I watched the Big 12, it's going to self-implode. Like, that's literally what the Big 12 would be doing. No one's even stealing their teams anymore. They'd be starting to kick them out. And this conference, it would not be a good look.
Well,
it's already not a good look.
It's hurting them on the field now because as of yesterday, the NCAA had ruled that 5 unnamed for whatever reason, 5 players, that doesn't make any sense. 5 players have been granted waivers. We kind of figured it out who it was, and Baylor people think they have it figured out. But Parrish Cobb is one of them. That was confirmed, I think, by ESPN report through his family. Now, one of the guys, Brandon Bowen, is a guy that Oklahoma would highly covet, but he was not believed to be one of the 5. There were some reports out there that there was a 6th that had requested a transfer waiver or to be released, but it was after these other 5, so that's still yet to be ruled on.
Yeah, so the 5 that people are speculating that are the guys that were released are Parrish Cobb, Cameron Martin, Patrick Hudson, J.P. Urquidez, and Donovan DuVernay are the guys that people are speculating that have been released.
Now, Parrish Cobb is a guy that Oklahoma really is focused in on, and they will try their best to get him to Oklahoma, and Kerry Cooks will try his best. Texas is certainly working on this pretty hard. I was thinking about putting a scoop together today, and I heard some stuff this week. Might as well just throw it out there now. People are saying, well, how does Texas get all these people in? And I was told yesterday of something that I didn't even know existed. You guys ever heard of a blue shirt?
Heard a gray shirt.
Blue shirt, no. I don't
Blue
think I have.
shirt is something that schools have available to them. And what they do is, okay, so let's say Texas I mean, they're going to get the other DuVernay.
Donovan, the brother.
Yeah, Donovan. And
Devin likely follows suit.
yeah, so
Oh, he's already. I think
he's
already signed.
Yeah,
that's
he
right.
already signed,
That's right.
committed, whatever. Let's say they get Donovan. What they do is they tell him, okay, either don't come to summer school or you pay for your own summer school. And then what happens is they put him on scholarship the first day classes start. And that's called a blue shirt, and they can count him towards next to the 2017 class.
So you're basically getting him in to work out for the summer.
Yeah.
He just pays his
He
own
pays
way.
his own, because the tuition's less because you only have to carry 9 hours, I think.
Is there some kind of...
Thank you, computer.
I mean, does the school then reimburse the family for that summer?
No,
or is
they
it-
have to pay.
You're just paying
Yeah,
it,
you have to pay for it.
which is probably decently expensive at Texas.
Or you just don't go to summer school.
But you can't work out, can you?
You can't work out, no.
At that point, you're just going to eat the red shirt, right? You say, all right, I'm not going to pay for the classes. I'll show up when my fall classes start. You can count me towards next year, but I mean, you're not going to play if you're not there.
Very,
summer work
yeah, well,
routes.
yeah,
unless
very
you're just
unlikely that you'd be able to win a job if you didn't do summer workouts.
So for a guy
But those guys would be eligible to play. So it's called a blue shirt. It's a term that's not used very often, but it is out there. It can be used.
trying to think,
And OU could do the same.
can you do that during the spring as well?
Well, if it's during the spring,
I think you can count towards the previous year's
it's counting
class.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
To
would
the-
count
okay,
back to
okay.
2016 or 2017. So
That'd be interesting. I mean, Texas, it seems like, just from the outside looking in, it seems like Texas is in really good shape for a lot of these guys from Baylor, which is, I guess, kind of makes that dynamic of Texas and Baylor even further. That
the Hudson kid, yeah. I mean, it's real. I think people have I have a hard time understanding it. Like, you went to you went to Baylor. You're not happy, so now you're going to go to Texas? Like, wouldn't you have just gone to Texas
from
in
the
the
get-go.
first place? Yeah.
And it makes it even more interesting that during this time, the players haven't actually from Baylor, while it's being reported that they've been let out, they haven't been officially let out of their NLI yet, have they? So schools can't talk to them. Like Texas,
You
can't
have to
recruit
have a
them.
release. Yeah, you have to have a release, which they should have today. I mean, if the NCAA came down with it yesterday, they should have their releases today. It usually doesn't take long to get that turned around.
And then schools could start contacting them. Carey Cooks could start calling people.
Yes.
Texas defensive backs coach could start calling people.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. Now, one other thing that was of interest along with this, and talking about eligibility and transfers and releases, Adrian Hardy chased this down last night. Was coming in with this class, had already signed, and I did talk to some people, close to OU. I talked to some people, outside in Louisiana and Houston area, that kind of tipped me off to this last night. But apparently this wasn't something that just happened. Like, people were asking me on Twitter today, was it a violation of team rules? What happened? I don't believe that Adrian Hardy ever stepped foot in Norman. And I'd heard that this was something that wasn't blindsided, didn't blindside him. That OU coaches and he had been talking about this going all the way back, I want to say to early May. And basically, I still am a little confused on this. All I can tell you is he gets a full release, a transfer, and the OU coaches have tried to do everything they can to help him find a landing spot, making phone calls, talking to coaches at other schools, some Power 5 schools. They've even gone so far as to talk to JUCOs for him, just to try and find him a landing spot. But for whatever reason, it's just not going to work out for Adrian at Oklahoma. And to be honest with you, I don't know that it was a good fit for him with all the receivers that they've got, especially young receivers that need reps that haven't really performed yet.
It's about the easiest split that you can I guess that you can come across for a school and for a player.
Now, is it processing?
I mean,
That's the big question.
Completely speculating, but that has to be the look. I mean, that's got to be the feel from the outside looking in on this thing, right? Is that even though Oklahoma doesn't have that reputation of processing guys, but if they had the opportunity they see some open spots for some receivers they really, really like in 2017, like Sedarian Lamb to come back, like Omar Manning, they might look at somebody like Adrian Hardy and say, okay, well, maybe we can find another school for you to go to. We'll help you out with the process. OU's good about that kind of stuff. And it makes me think of almost like the Tyrell Jacobs situation a few years back, the defensive tackle from Louisiana. Now, this was still in the recruiting process, but essentially OU did the same thing. They realized that they had better options that they liked, but they still helped Jacobs find a fit. They helped Missouri find him and have that situation work out. This just so happened to happen after signing day, which is a little awkward.
Yeah, I mean, something happened along the way, and I think he was an early commitment. I think he's probably got a staff that really didn't. They just needed to get bodies in a class, and I mean, I don't think anybody could have foreseen exactly what's happened to this recruiting class for them to have this many guys, this many big name guys, and let's face it. I mean, last year, the Velus Jones kid, I mean, that was a blow to them, and I think they just felt like they needed to hold on to whatever they could, and then Michael Jones ended up coming through, in the end. So I think you're probably sitting there like, well, you got a lot of young guys like A.D. Miller and Dahu Green, and you got a young Mark Andrews. You got all these other guys we're trying to fit in to find ways for them to make an impact. And you don't want it to look like you have too many receivers on your roster, and especially you don't want to have guys that can't help you.
Yeah.
Filling up. So when a kid goes and looks at your depth chart, looks at your roster, and sees all these wide receivers, like, what? Why do I want to go there? They got 14 receivers.
Could this be argued as a difference in, I guess, recruiting mentality, that just kind of the change that we've seen within the staff here as of late? Or, I mean, I guess that's the big question.
Are they more hardcore?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of an SEC move in telling a kid that maybe look somewhere else.
I mean, you look at what Texas is doing with the Baylor kids in the blue shirts, and Oklahoma just did with Adrian Hardy. It almost has the feel like Oklahoma and Texas have realized that they have to up their toughness, I guess, in the recruiting game. They have to get a little more hard-edged. Say what you will about it, but that I guess they feel like that's the nature of the beast now. And I mean, I think Oklahoma's navigating it as best they can, whilst trying to be as good to the kid as they can. But this is clearly not clearly, but it looks to be a business decision, which OU generally tends to side on the fact of we offered the kid a scholarship, we're going to give him the scholarship and let him come here. But this seems to be a little more tough-nosed.
Well, Joe, I know you said last night when we were talking about all this stuff, like, you'd had his number, you tried to call him, you tried to text him, and he was not responsive.
No.
And as far as I know, he's never been very responsive.
I never have once gotten a word out of him.
I'm curious what his side of the story really is, because I did get a hold of him last night, but the only thing he did was confirmed, yes, I've been released. Mm-hmm. It was just a one-word. I phrased the question as, hey, we heard this. I've heard that Louisiana Tech and Houston is trying to recruit you now because you got released from OU. Is that true? And he's just said yes. And I asked him one other question. He never responded to it. So, I mean, when somebody doesn't talk like that and they get an opportunity, maybe there's something they want to say, maybe he comes out and says, I got screwed, or felt like I got screwed.
There's always one kid in the signing class that it's just like, I mean, until you said something about his name last night, I could have probably named every guy in the 2016 class. Adrian Hardy would not have been one.
He committed so early.
Kind of, you were worried about, or that you could just remember?
Just remember. I mean, just a guy that kind of slips through the cracks, and it's like, oh yeah, that guy did sign with Oklahoma.
Well, I got and this happens. I mean, you get things. We're in this business, and I'd actually got tipped off from someone in Louisiana that works for Rivals, and they sent me a text message. It was during my radio show yesterday. and I can't remember exactly what it said, but he said, "Is Adrian Hardy going to end up at Oklahoma?" And I thought to myself, who the hell is Adrian Hardy? And then I thought, oh, yeah, he signed with Oklahoma. So, I'm right there with you. All right, more to come on that, I guess. I mean, I guess we just have to wait and see how Adrian Hardy reacts to that. One other thing, football-related, wanted to get to. Cody Thomas is no longer an Oklahoma Sooner, which is so bizarre because it seems like yesterday we were at Colleyville Heritage High School, Eddie, watching this kid, and it also kind of proves quarterback evaluation is the hardest damn thing there is. I mean, I watched that kid. We went out there, big, good arm. I guarantee you, if you had Baker Mayfield playing on the field next to him, I would have been, of course, Cody Thomas. That's the guy you want. You don't want this little Baker Mayfield kid. But it just didn't work out with football. And you know what? I'm actually glad it worked out this way for him. And I thought all along, if he got drafted and it just wasn't like, 25th round or something, he'd probably take it. Just move on, not have to worry about, being the failed quarterback at Oklahoma. And that's what he's done.
Pretty amazing. I mean, and this is a guy that really from about mid-season to the last month of the season, didn't play that much. He DH'd, didn't play much of the field, and then the last month of the season, I mean, he almost hit 400. He ended up with 117 at-bats this year, which was a career high at Oklahoma.
Versus 12 last year.
Yeah, versus 12, I guess 2 years ago, would have been 2 years ago because he took this year off.
Yeah, that's right.
And then he ends up batting .299 for the season, .354 on base percentage, .556 slug percentage, 6 home runs, 27 RBIs. And really, it was the last month of the season. I mean, he won a couple games for Oklahoma, including a Bedlam series in which he had a home run in the opener in Oklahoma City. Oklahoma ended up winning the series against a team that is now one win away from a national title series in Omaha. And the Dodgers, I think they showed a lot of respect for him as well. They gave him almost $100,000
more than the
slotted, and he ends up with a signing bonus of $300K. And really a guy that obviously has a good arm from the outfield. He can hit from power. He's fast. He's going to be a guy that I think somebody that you should really watch in the Dodgers farm system. I don't really know what their farm system looks like as far as outfielder talent, but I would think that he'll have every opportunity, and I think that he can probably translate to a guy that can. I don't know if he can play in the major leagues one day. It'll be interesting, but he's definitely a guy that can play for a couple years in the minors and have a really good career.
If he makes it to AAA in that system, he'll be in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Which would be cool for
he likes hitting in the ballpark,
and
he is a horrible failure at beard growing though. Like Joe Duvall's beard is so much better than Cody Thomas's will ever be.
We all have our own God-given gifts. His got him a $300,000 contract. Mine gives me a
400,
beard.
right?
Or 300, yeah.
Did he get 400?
He got 300 signing bonus.
Oh, okay.
My beard doesn't get that much, so I think Cody wins that one.
I think if you would have offered him $300K the night after they walked off the Owen Field after he started in a Bedlam loss, he probably would have taken it.
I mean, he had 11 at bats the first year he came
12.
to OU, 12 at bats, and it wasn't like those were 12 great at bats. I mean, he just didn't look good out there.
No, I think he had one base hit and it was an infield single.
Right. And anybody who's played baseball knows that you do need that repetition. You can't just kind of jump into it, which is kind of why I worry that Kyler Murray's not going to be that successful hitting. I mean, you can't just jump into it and then pick up the timing. Timing is so important, and if those guys are hitting every single day, you're not just going to jump in and be better than them. You're not. So once he got to focus all of his time on baseball, I know that there were people on the baseball team that were thinking he might not even make the team. We don't even know how good he is. But once he got that repetition, you could see that those 5 tools starting to come out in him. He is fast. They used him as a pinch runner his first year when he couldn't hit. He has a great arm. He was an Oklahoma quarterback. He can play right field and throw guys out at the plate. He's got a great frame. He can hit for power. He can hit for average. He can field his position. So
who knows? I mean, he might try and extend his professional career if he doesn't hit well and move to the mound.
That can always be a fallback, and I think coming out of Colleyville Heritage, that was his big deal with the Major League Draft, was they wanted him to get on the bump, and he never would because he didn't want to hurt his arm for football. And obviously now that's over, and it will be interesting to see if he there's a lot of guys that come into the Major League Baseball through a position and end up on the mound. So that will be really interesting.
13th round pick. That's not bad.
Not bad at all.
Not bad at all.
All right, let's move on. We're running out of time here a little bit, but last night, Buddy Hield, taken with the number 6 overall pick in the draft, doesn't go to Minnesota at 5, which was a lot of the projections were there, but Chris Dunn was available because Boston is stupid, and I was kind of shocked at how it made me feel watching him go at number 6, and just thinking about a year ago at this time, he was announcing that he was coming back for his senior year, and everybody then said, well, if he would have won, he would have been a late second round, maybe not drafted at all. For him to, I mean, his year was amazing, but for it to culminate in a lottery pick, lottery selection, it's one of the all-time greatest years I've ever seen a guy have.
Especially where he came from, like you said. I mean, he was going to be an NBA prospect after last year. He was going to be probably picked. He was going to be, somebody was going to try to make him a starter, but no one was going to invest in him like they did after this year. He made himself worthy of an investment, and that's a testament to just him, to Buddy Hield, and to Lon Kruger and that staff. But he put in so much work into his shot. When he came into Norman, I remember Bill Self tells the story of when he's coming out of Sunrise Christian Academy in Wichita. This is not a great shooter. This is not a great basketball player. He doesn't look polished at all. Bill Self said, if I knew he was going to be this, we would have recruited him 100 times harder. So he really has come a long way and showed how he could build his value. And what also worked out for him was almost a bit of luck, or maybe he recognized it, that the game was changing to this wide open 3-point, get your advantage, get your efficiency down at the 3-point line, and that helps you out in the long run, and that all these math guys and numbers guys will start to take value in that. And I mean, he shot an absurd amount of threes this year. I think it was over 300. I mean, he is going to be a perfect fit into that league. And New Orleans, that was a great spot for him to land. He's got Anthony Davis down low, clogging up a lot of attention. There's going to be a lot of kickouts, a lot of open three looks for him, which is just what he needs. And he's also in an offense where he has an opportunity to score a lot. Eric Gordon's probably leaving there, so you can't even. He's gone from hopefully that guy can make a roster in the NBA to now he looks like he could possibly be a productive player and a possible all-star one day.
It's amazing. The type of ride that he put Oklahoma fans on this season, whether it be the 46-point game at Allen Fieldhouse or the incredible overtime effort in Ames against Iowa State,
Going
or
down to Baton Rouge, beating Ben Simmons, the number 1 overall pick.
And that was kind of the game that I guess really elevated Cousins to where he got. I think we'll talk about him here in a little bit, but Buddy Hield he's going to go down as one of those guys that Oklahoma fans he's going to be maybe the number 1 quote unquote guy of the Oklahoma basketball program. And there's been a bunch of big names, including Blake Griffin, who went number 1. Buddy I don't know. I don't know if it's also probably the way that he's treated Oklahoma fans and how open he's been, how appreciative he's been. And I think that there's just kind of a love affair that, you see Blake Griffin come back to play the Thunder, and there's no doubt he gets booed. I don't think we'll ever see a day where Buddy Hield is booed by the Oklahoma, fan base or the entire state when he comes back to Chesapeake Arena.
That'll be interesting to see exactly how he is.
Because, when Blake is like a local son, so people people really loved him as an Oklahoman, and he put Oklahoma on the map. But he was still kind of a superstar while he was here. Hung out with the basketball team a lot. Buddy is that, if you've been around campus, Buddy and that whole basketball team will immerse themselves in campus activities. They will be around students. They feel like OU kids. They're around the community, and just his personality is so. It's just so electric. You can't not feed off of it. He's going to be somebody that OU fans love for a long, long time, probably forever. And he's going to be one of those guys when people say, Wayman and Alvin and Blake Griffin, and Buddy Hield's going to roll right off the tongue in that group. It's pretty special for that kid from the Bahamas.
There's no doubt, too, that he will be a guy that I feel like, as much as his schedule allows him to, he'll be back around Norman and be back around the Lloyd Noble Center and be back around that team next season. I think his connection back to the university is that strong.
Buddy goes at number 6. Everyone thought because of I think he worked out for 13 different teams, NBA teams. Isaiah Cousins ends up going next to the last pick. Was that when he went in the draft?
Yep.
Goes to Sacramento to play with the biggest baby whiner in the NBA, and that's DeMarcus Cousins. So he's sharing a last name with a jerkhead. But, I joked last night, welcome to the NBA, sort of, because that team is so... They did beat the Thunder, I think, this year.
I think they did out there.
Yeah, and that it was their last game.
Yeah,
in the
that's
gym,
right.
and
That's
won.
right.
That was, that's why I hate him so much. So, I mean, DeMarcus Cousins, yeah, maybe he'll be back and forth a little bit in the D League this first year, but all you can ask for is an opportunity. He's got one.
Yeah, you talk about Buddy making a leap. Isaiah Cousins is a guy that after his freshman season, I remember people on the board wondering, should this guy even be on scholarship? Should this guy even
Remember,
be?
He had so many confidence issues just getting the ball across the court, across the half-court line.
Yeah, he was. I mean, there were points in his freshman season that you wondered, what they saw in this guy. But credit Lou Hill, credit Lon Kruger. They worked with him endlessly. He has a work ethic like no other. It competes with Buddy Hield, and they both kind of grew off each other, fed off each other, whatever you want to call it. And you see where they landed now.
They set the tone for the Kruger years. They really did. Those are two guys that were part of the early years of Kruger when he got here, one of the first couple classes he recruited. And they're two guys that were both really, really raw coming out of high school, but you can see now that that athleticism was there and that it just needed some time and to be cultivated in the right work ethic and the right environment. And that's kind of what Lon Kruger has proven to be, is that he can bring in these highly talented kids that may not be like the elite top tier guys that are automatic one and dones, and he can get these raw prospects, put them in his program for a few years, give them structure, and just watch them grow. And like one person said on the board that Hollis Price didn't get drafted, but Isaiah Cousins did.
Yeah, that's impressive.
That's just, I mean, that's I think that's a shame Hollis Price didn't get drafted, but that's a testament to Cousins that he made himself, somebody that the NBA could possibly want, because he's a tough defender. He's got great length. He shot a good percentage from three, whatever you think about the way his shot looks. When you and that's the thing, you watch the NBA, you realize there aren't a lot of defenders out there. There are not a lot of guys like Klay Thompson is like a unicorn, a guy that shoots that well and plays defense. Like Steph Curry can't play defense, realistically.
No.
Westbrook could if he wanted to, but he doesn't. James Harden's an embarrassment to the word. Like Tony Allen, there's a reason he's been in the league forever, because he defends. And you look at what Isaiah Cousins does and how hard he plays on the defensive end, there really is a place for him in the league, and he could last a long time if he just makes some shots. I mean, hell, Andre Robertson has a job in the league.
That's true.
He's a starter in the league on a Western Conference Finals team.
For one team, he's a starter.
Right. Probably not anymore. But he is, though. Him, Tabo, there are guys out there that show that you can make a living in this league if you play tough, tenacious defense with a great wingspan, and you can knock down an open shot every now and then. And that's the shot Cousins have. That's the niche he has to build in the NBA.
Cousins is. It's not like he's a guy. I mean, he'll take a lot of shots way behind the three. Mm-hmm. So I mean, he's got range. He's not. I'm not really that worried about making shots, moving the line back and stuff like that. It's just, confidence, I think, for him is a big issue. He can get down on himself. He can get flustered. He's not a guy that you probably want handling the ball all the time in the NBA. But he could be a combo.
He kept getting better, and I think that's probably the number one thing that you look at. I don't think he's necessarily reached a ceiling by any means. He can still turn into a decent ball handler. He can get better doing that, and I think that he's not going anywhere. He's going to be in a gym somewhere attempting to get better. So
Russell Westbrook used to have an elbow jumper like his. I mean,
Yeah.
he doesn't really shoot it anymore, but you can make a living off
He has
of
that same stop and go. I mean,
Yeah.
he's obviously not Russell Westbrook, but he can kind of stop his momentum, get it going on a dime
Yeah.
to get that shot off in transition.
No, he will drive you to the bucket and then pull up, at that elbow. That's
And he's money from that spot, too.
it's kind of Klay Thompson's signature move now too. So, all right, well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Sooner Scoop podcast, and appreciate Eddie Radosevich and Joe Duvall. I'm going to be on vacation next week, so I will be hard to reach. Unfortunately, I am on a new diet since one of my radio partners, Phil Nzinga, tried to kill himself. So I'm wearing my Fitbit, and I can't just sit around and drink whiskey all next week, which is very unfortunate.
You can walk around and drink it, though. Just as long as you're
that's
moving.
a good point.
2 birds, 1 stone.
I'm telling you, after 2 weeks of working out, it doesn't take much whiskey anymore.
I hear they're coming out with like a Gatorade whiskey blend type of drink.
That sounds like for sissies. That's like Fireball.
Fireball.
Just drink your whiskey like
no,
a
that's
man.
like Firefly. You mean? Don't dog Fireball.
Fireball is an abomination to whiskey.
Drink a bottle, then we'll see how
I
you
am
feel.
not drinking that. I'll
Mix that
Don't
with
get
some
me
apple
started,
cider.
Eddie.
It's not bad.
get fired if this conversation continues. All right, that's Eddie Radosevich, the cusser. He's a cusser.
The bad boy.
He's got a dirty mouth.
Sue me.
Joe Duvall, appreciate you being a part of the show as well. And I am Carey Murdoch, so next time we will see you then. That makes no sense, but that's how we're ending the show. We'll see you guys next time.